I can't get any sound. And Brad Millsap's just, yeah, nobody has seen.
Okay, hopefully it's being recorded, but it looks like it's a new camera. So I'm wondering if
What was that you had before? That was the sound.
That's not what's going on. They're thinking about a world, right? The land. In the beginning, God created the sky and the land. That's how they're understanding, which is the earth. It's perfectly legit to call it the earth, just not this. This isn't in their mind. They're thinking like this, and they're thinking there's foundations of the earth, okay, that are going to hold up the earth, and they're thinking there's a lot of water. That's what the world think. That's what they think like in Genesis chapter 1. You remember me doing something similar to this in Genesis chapter 1. Okay, and pedagogical faux pas again. There you go. Now it's so much better, isn't it? Blue. Okay, because water's blue. All right. And what has to happen is that God starts creating, right? Or ordering is how I tried to explain that. Better sheet. It's not that things don't exist. He's not speaking them into existence so much, although God said these things, but he's starting to move things. He's putting the house in order. The house is there, heavens and earth are there, and now he's moving and ordering these things. So what he's going to do first is he's got to make some room like this, right? Got to just move it so the waters from the waters this way. Yeah, and then he does the waters from the waters this way. So he creates light, and then he starts separating these things so that the water starts to recede, and now all you've got is the water over here, because it was all the way, right? It was everywhere. So now the dry land appears, is how it's said. It appears, and so now he can place his icon, his person there. So what's happening in this story, I think, is the uncreation. This is the creation story, and what's about to happen is the uncreation. So what we have up here is he creates in the creation story, he creates this super cool thing that he calls a rakia, right? That will keep out the waters that are above the earth, right? That's how he did all that stuff. Now I got to put every single one of these back on. That's why people don't do this. It takes too long. Okay, so he creates the rakia, this global idea that I'm trying to get across, or rather cosmic, is that when he's done all of this, now he's so fed up with the world the way it is, Genesis 6, 1-4, which we're about to start looking at, right? That he is going to put windows. We find out in Genesis there are windows in the rakia. We didn't know this before, but there are windows that are opened. And there are the depths of the earth. So what is happening is the water is coming up and coming down so that it comes back to this, which we call what? Yeah, the flood. You remember this word? These two words? Tohu vabohu. Right? This is your Hebrew lesson. Okay. Before, all you knew was the word hallelujah. Praise be the Lord, right? That's your Hebrew. Now you know tohu vabohu. Two, actually that's 3, 4 words. Tohu vabohu. That is formless and void, or work wild and waste, or what I just say, chaos. Wild and waste is good because it has the same kind of feel, the rhyme, the cadence of tohu vabohu, wild and waste. It's a mess. In other words, man can't live here anymore. Okay, that's what's happening. So the question isn't what happened though, okay, because this is the way it's painted in their world, because this is their thing. And I gave you a picture of that on your, there somewhere, maybe on the back page or something like that. And I even put the chaos monster down here, I think. Okay. I didn't put it there. I just stole it off the internet, but that's a good picture of something. The chaos monster is the waters that are constantly coming up. It's why in Revelation chapter 12 and Revelation chapter 21, we find that the sea is being defeated, okay, because it's chaos. It's this beautiful picture. It doesn't mean that you can't surf in heaven. Maybe you can, I don't know. Stop thinking about heaven that way anyway, right? But it's about the end of chaos. It's about everything being ordered and structured the way it's supposed to be, which is why, by the way, Ruth is called a Hayil Isha, right? A woman of worth, a woman of valor, right? Because she does things in the proper order. She does things according to the righteousness of Yahweh. She follows the way of Naomi, which we'll get to in just a few minutes. But we got to stay here for a few more minutes. All right. So their cosmology is this flat Earth with mountains holding up the dome, the rakia, right? And what they've done is they've taken this real thing that happened in history, I think. Okay. There's data for a flood in their cultural memory, and they've put it here. And now what they're doing is not telling you about a flood. Everyone knew about a flood. Again, because grandpa told them about a flood, not that he saw, but his great grandpa. It's been passed down. They knew about this, but they want to know why. Why did it happen? The Babylonians are telling us it's because Enlil wanted to sleep. He's like, he deserved a nap. And the Who's and Whoville are singing, da, who, door, and he was ticked off about it. Is that what had happened? So Genesis wants to get in on this. Let me tell you why this happened, what's really going on here. And isn't this exactly what happens even in our world today? When things happen that are bad, we come up with some sort of religious reason for it, don't we, Christians? Every blog in the world when the 2006 tsunami hit, right, told us that God was angry at the Asians because they were Buddhists. Okay, maybe, I guess. I don't know if there's any data for such a thing. Okay, but that's what happened. The Twin Towers go down, and we hear from so many Christians, right? This is within we remember this really clearly. Why did the Twin Towers come down? Why did God allow this attack on America? Because we allowed for abortion and homosexuality, for instance. Did you hear this all over the internet? I sure did, right? It's the why that is out there. And it's why did Wake lose this baseball game? It's because I couldn't find my lucky underwear, and then it would have worked, right? We always have a reason, don't we? We want the reason. It's not what happened, it's why it's happened. Facts aren't as important as the reason for the place of the people in the story. And of course, this has to do with Israel's God and how they saw themselves in relation to God. That's what their story is about. It's about Israel in the midst of exile or monarchy or Egyptian slavery, whatever point along the spectrum that you need it to be. It's about trying to say, we're living, this is why this happened. This is why these terrible things have happened in our life. And this story is about why these terrible things happen. So there's a real historical flood. It's not about because God is capricious or arbitrary or needs a nap. It's not he's a Godzilla kind of God and just like, fine, I've had it. And he clears the table, even though I started off with that example. That's not exactly what's happening here. Okay, there's something deeper. It's because he has standards, and the standards are being trampled on. That's the problem that we're coming to here. The cosmic order of the universe has been ignored. That is significant in Scripture. The cosmic order of the universe. God, according to the Israelite people, has put things in a particular order, and they need to go that way. It's why the sun and moon are created, so that you know at a certain time, these are the worship days that you're supposed to be doing things in. Okay, you know that here's Passover, here's the different things that have happened. He's going to organize it according to that. And cosmic order is so important. That's why we get into fights about man and woman and whether women should be in leadership or not, right? Out there in Christian world, in evangelical Christian world, right? Because order is important, and it is important. It's important to ask those questions. Who's in charge? Who should be doing what? So in this particular case, we have Genesis 6, verses 1 through 4. Okay, so everyone has these problems. Adam and Eve decided we're going to do things our own way. Cain goes a step further, says he's going to do things his own way, and his desires lead to all their desires lead to exile. And I told you what exile meant, right? Death. It's the same thing, right? If you eat of this tree, you're going to die. It's the same word all the way through Ezekiel, Isaiah, right? When they're in exile, that's the word death. We've died. Right? We can no longer sing in a land like this. We're dead. We have no hope. It's the dead bones, the dry bones, right? In Ezekiel chapter 37, 47. I don't even remember. Did it even go to 50? I think it's 37. I don't know. Whatever. They get up, right? This is they're dead. They're in exile. And Lamech, of course, goes even further. He brags about killing 7 people, which is the complete total number. Like things are as bad as they can be. And this takes us to Genesis chapter 6, 1 through 4, which we're not going to do a lot with because it's huge and I don't want to get you angry with me this close to my leaving. So Genesis 6, let's just look at it. It's that passage that you don't read when you're reading the flood story. because just start in verse 5. It's much easier. Isn't this what we good Christians do anyway, isn't it? Let's just be totally honest. Like, we know what stories say, and so we read those stories and we make them say what we want them to say, and we leave out the passages that we don't want to deal with. And this passage is freaky. And what we do is we take anybody's interpretation that fits our scenario the way we like it. Because what's actually happening in the scenario is weird, and we don't like it. Genesis 6, when men began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal. His days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men and had children with them. They were the heroes of old, the Giborim. Interesting, right? Remember, Boaz is called a Gibor, the Giborim. Men of renown. Okay, so we've got this weird thing. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterwards. That's strange, isn't it? Because I'm pretty sure the flood story tells us that everybody's dead. Like, that's what the whole idea was. But nope, they were there before, they were there after. So what do you have in that great, what's that show? Noah, Russell Crowe, Noah. Right? We have to have somebody climb aboard the ark to hide on the ark and then gets in a fight. Remember, nobody saw that one either. Why do I use movies? It's my explanation. Sorry. Well, anyway, I understand why you didn't watch it. It was not that great. So here's what's going on. We got like 9 minutes. So we're gonna do this story, and then we'll start next time with the rest of this story. So what's going on in the Noah story. But today is all about reading ancient texts. Okay, so story time. Are you ready? Here's story time again. This is the book of Enoch. Anybody heard of the book of Enoch before? Raise your hand if you've heard of the book of Enoch. Yes, we've heard of it. Anybody read the book of Enoch before? Oh, that's a lot of people, actually. That was probably about 10 people. All right, excellent. So I'm just going to read, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 chapters in here, which I can do in this amount of time without any problem. And then we'll kind of revisit this afterwards. In those days, let me set this up here. The question is, who are these sons of God? And who are these daughters of men that intermarry? And maybe, according to other mythology, this is not very clear in Genesis 6, 1 through 4, right? But according to others, create this superhuman race called the Nephilim, the giants, or the Gibborim. Some scholars would say they're the same thing, Nephilim and Gibborim. Some would say they're different, but we don't need to get into the fight of this. It's coming from this, or Enoch is interpreting it this way. Okay, Enoch, even though it's called Enoch, which we just read about, right, in Genesis chapter 4, Genesis chapter 5, right? Enoch was no more. All of them died, but Enoch was no more. That's this guy. He didn't write this book. This book comes thousands of years probably after Enoch. Okay, this is coming probably within a few hundred years of Jesus, before Jesus. And even there's probably some Christian versions of it after Jesus. But so that's this time. And we call this the pseudepigrapha. Okay, this is a great word. If you're at a party somewhere, just throw this word around. Like, have you read the pseudepigrapha lately? And people will be like, whoa, he's really, like, that starts the party. Like, that's how they get going, as far as I know. It always works in my world. So pseudepigrapha just means false writings, or these are the ones who are falsely named. Okay, so a lot of these books in here, they tell you who the author is, and everyone knows they're not the author. The people at the time know they're not the author. It would be like me writing a book right now and signing it from Noah. You would all be like, all right, he's doing something, right? He's playing. We know Noah didn't write it. We don't even believe Noah was real, maybe, right? Okay, so that's what's going on. And he has an interpretation. By the way, Jude, Peter, they all talk about this kind of stuff. So if you read Jude, you're going to see stuff about these creatures that come down, whatever. In those days, when the children of man had multiplied, it happened that there was born into them handsome and beautiful daughters. Okay, so they multiplied. That was the goal, right? Go be fruitful and multiply. In the days when that happened, there were born some beautiful daughters. We got daughters of man. It's right in the text. And the angels, didn't say anything about angels, but here we got angels. The children of heaven, there's the sons of God. Sons of God are angels. Saw them and desired them. And they said to one another, Come, let us choose wives for ourselves from among the daughters of man and beget us children. Okay, so here's these daughters, these sons of God, these gods. That's what sons of God, status of gods, these divine creatures that are looking down at the women and saying, yeah, I want some of that. And so they're going down and they're intermarrying, or they're taking is an equal way of saying it, and they're making themselves children. So angels is a later understanding of gods in the Old Testament. So usually it's Elohim in the Old Testament. There are some reference to Malachim later on, or some kind of other divine creatures that do bidding, but usually it's the Elohim. And later on, those Elohim, as angelology progresses, as understanding progresses, as we start thinking about angels differently. Remember, angels in the Old Testament are these weird creatures with lots of faces and multiple wings, seraphim, cherubim, all these kinds of creatures, which aren't technically angels, but these different things. And now we have a picture of angels very differently, right? They're all white and they have wings. Like there's no angels with wings in the Bible. I don't know if you know that, but there are none. No angels with wings in the Bible. But that's your picture of them, because they fly. So you figure they've got to have wings like birds. But anyway, okay, that's all free. The rest of the stuff costs. I'll take tips later. And Semeiaz, being their leader, said unto them, I fear that perhaps you will not consent that this deed should be done, and I alone will become responsible for this great sin. So the leader's like, we can't do that, or you guys are going to blame me, right? When they find out that we went down and married these daughters of men, you're going to blame me, and I alone will become responsible. But they all responded to him, let us all swear an oath and bind everyone among us by a curse, not to abandon this suggestion, but to do the deed. Then they all swore together and bound one another by the curse. And they were altogether 200, and they descended into Ardas, which is the summit of Hermon. And they called the Mount Armon, for they swore and bound by another a curse. That's Aurora. And their names are as follows: Semeiaz, the leader of Arakeb, Ramael, Tamael, Ramael, Danael, Adzakel, Barakiai, Asel, Armaras, Bartarel, Arnanel, Zakael, Saso, Maspa, Iel, Kastarael, Turael, Yamayol, okay, you get it. These are you've memorized that, I'm sure. These are their chiefs of tens and of all the others with them. That's chapter 6. And they took wives unto themselves, and everyone respectively chose one woman for himself, and they began to go on to them, and they taught them the magical medicine, incantations, the cutting of roots, and taught them about plants. Okay, so now they're teaching, what's that, botany? I don't know what plant, horticulture, I don't even know. What is that called? Horticulture, botany? Okay, botany. They're teaching them all this stuff. And the women became pregnant and gave birth to great giants whose heights were 300 cubits. That's big. These giants consumed the produce of all the people until the people detested feeding them. You can imagine. So the giants turned against the people in order to eat them, because they're 300 feet tall. They're 300 plus feet tall. And they began to sin against birds, wild beasts, reptiles, and fish, and their flesh were devoured by one and by the other, and they drank blood. And then the earth brought an accusation against the oppressors. And Azazel taught the people the art of making swords and knives and shields and breastplates. Now that they learned botany, now they're learning war. And he showed them to he showed to their chosen ones bracelets, decorations, get this, shadowing of the eyes, with antimony and an ornamentation and beautifying of the eyelids, all kinds of precious stones, all coloring tinctures and alchemy. And there were many wicked ones, and they committed adultery and erred, and all their conduct became corrupt. Basically, they taught you how to make makeup and seduce the men. Okay, it's the angels who taught all you evil women how to do that. Okay, it's right here. Amasras taught incantation and the cutting of roots, the Armaros, the resolving of incantations, and the Barakel, astrology, and Kokarael, the knowledge of the signs, and Tamael taught the seeing of the stars, and Azrael taught the curse of the moon, as well as the deception of man, and the people cried, and their voice reached under heaven until heaven. Oh, man, okay. So I definitely need to read chapter 9 and 10 to get to the flood, but I didn't make it because I kept throwing in stupid little snide comments. I need to stop doing that. So we will get back to chapter 9 and 10 after, but this is really significant because this is what we call a second temple text. Okay, and it's filled with them, right? That's just one. First Enoch is just one out of tons of these. They're apocalyptic texts like Revelation. Okay, there's a bunch of these in here, and they are interpreting the Bible from their particular point of view in the same world, guess what, as the authors of the New Testament are. So the New Testament authors like Jude and Peter are interpreting this passage in in Genesis chapter 6, 1-4, in similar ways to Enoch. Why? Maybe because they know the book of Enoch, or maybe because they live in the same world and they've all heard these kinds of stories. And so they're not trying to tell you whether this is true or false information necessarily. That's going to be some work that we have to do, and way more work than we can do here. They're trying to tell you a why. That basically, assuming this view of the world, here's why it happened. That's what's going on here. It's not that God was capricious. It's not that God was just angry about life and things like that. It's that the order of the universe is being trounced on. And he has a plan for flourishing, for beauty, for all these good things. And it's not happening. His mankind didn't live up to this. So much so, not only did mankind not live up to it, even the divine beings in the heavens didn't live up to it. And they start going outside of their proper domain. I think those are the words that Jude uses, outside their proper domain, coming down and intermarrying, which is a normal mythological thing. And you know it, right? Hercules is half. All the Percy Jackson stories are halves. The gods come down and marry. And that is abomination to Yahweh. Now we have to ask the question, did this really happen? But we're going to wait till next week to talk about that. Okay, as to what really happened and what didn't. You're going to have to come back for that. I do have one announcement to give you before you go eat all this wonderful food that Marge and everybody is, because she's in the back. Blair's looking at me. She gave me that glare. Don't you dare forget. I know you're going to forget, Jason. She's right. Right outside those doors is a huge banner for Amy, who comes back this week. And it's just, we just want to say, welcome back, Amy. We're going to put it in her office when she comes in, and it'll be like, ah! And all of you, we want you all to sign it. If you want to just put your name on it, it's fine. If you want to write some little message, it's a big banner. So there's lots of room for stuff. So go write something, get your little cracker, cheese, or whatever you want to eat, and then go sign that, please. There's lots of pens, I assume, out there for such a thing. All right. Go in peace. We'll see you in 30 minutes for worship, I hope. Thank you. Oh, it's so nice.